Hi, everybody. Zane with Sailing Views. I have Annie Gardner here. She is a great sailor. She has been doing it for a while and she has been everywhere, done everything. Um, a lot of people have mentioned her and just told great stories about her and all the wonderful things she's done. So, how you doing, Annie?
Great. Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm trying to get everything figured out and trying to make sure my cat doesn't come over here and attack the microphone. But other, yeah, other than that, um, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the questions and start finding out some info. All right, so what age did you start sailing?
Well, I was a little girl, and my father was very much into sailing his whole life. So all the kids learned to sail at Coral Reef Yacht Club in Miami,
Hmm.
Biscayne Bay. And I was put into a little pram off to Mustingy. By the time I was 9, I had my own little boat. But the truth is, when I was maybe 3 or 4, my brother, who raced jets with my dad, they took me sailing and it was keeled way over. And I was told that I just kept screaming, I don't like the fishy water. But I was a fish already. So I don't know what it was. I was scared when I was really little, but then somehow the bug hit me. And I think it had a lot to do with the freedom of having my own little boat and always having warm water and little islands, and I could explore and go play. Wasn't really into racing at all. I just really liked the adventure and the freedom and the independence of getting out there. So since I was raised close to the water my whole life. We Our vacations were spent going to the Bahamas with my 3 other siblings and family, and so I was always around the water.
I gotcha. All right, I'm realizing my whole video I'm not showing myself at all, so I'm trying to adjust it. All right. um, okay, so let's move on to the next question. Who were some of your other influences? Who helped you out? You know, once you had learned your basic sailing, who else got you started, or who really gave you a hand?
Well, when I was young, I definitely looked up to my father. He had a team and a 1 tonner, and I saw him and his friends going out and racing and coming back. And um, I really looked up to that, and I looked up to him a lot. And then I got a Hobie Cat when I was 16, and I just sailed the heck out of that thing for fun. And I remember one day seeing somebody on a windsurfer and saying, that looks fun. And I offered him to hop on my boat and I hop on his. And I got hooked big time with the windsurfing and met Rhonda Smith on a Wednesday night down. We used to have all the great windsurfing legends come down on Wednesday nights and play in Miami. So I definitely saw Rhonda as a mentor. She helped me a lot, gave me my first high wind dagger board, and had everybody sign it for my birthday. So she was somebody I really looked up to in windsurfing. My father, in terms of big boats, because I was sailing my Hobie Cat, started racing the windsurfers, and I was also racing big by the time I was 18. So I was all over it.
I got
And
you.
mentors, they've been they've been everywhere. I mean, I'd say probably when I did the SORC and I started racing at the international level when I was 22, and I skippered the all girls crew, we had every Tom, Dick, and Harry coming over to the boat wanting to mentor us. So I literally met all the stars. We had Lowell North and Dennis Connor. Dennis definitely took us under his wing, and he was on our boat a lot, helping us learn how to use a fractional rig the second year I did it. And we just had so many great mentors that I couldn't name one or two. They've been there and they still are there.
That is very cool. Um, all right, so with all your sailing, I know you do a lot of Hobie 16s, and you know you've done everything, and I know what you're doing now. Um, actually, let's just tell everybody what you're doing right now these days.
Well, my husband Eric and I bought a Katana 472 in France about 5.5 years ago. And on Cinco de Mayo, 5 years ago, we threw off the dock lines from the south of France in the Med and we started cruising. We did the Med for a year, and then we did the transatlantic, went down to the Caribbean, spent 3 seasons there going up and down the East Coast. And then we went to Cuba and the Grand Caymans and down to Cartagena, Colombia, to the San Blas Islands, went through the Panama Canal this last February, March. And we're on our way to the Marquesas when the coronavirus, it had already hit, but when everything started to get locked down, we were literally like 2 days ahead of every closure, it seemed. So
Wow.
we came out of customs, got a note from the insurance to call them immediately, and they said, you can't go to the Pacific, we won't cover you. So we tried to find another insurance carrier and couldn't, and went, well, maybe this was meant to be. Uncertain times. And we have friends that had left a week before us that we were going to meet, and they've been in lockdown, not allowed to go island hopping. And now they're allowed to go on the island, but at first nobody could even get off their boat in the Marquesas. And then in the end, the boats that had left around the time that we were leaving, they're not, only one person ashore, no one's allowed to swim. So we were like, okay, well, what do? We go to Mexico and work our way back to San Diego. And we might have stopped in Costa Rica and some other places on the way, but everything was closing down. So we couldn't stop anywhere. And we were afraid Mexico would close because nobody knew what was going to happen. So we had 2 crew members with us that were going to go with us across the Pacific. And so we got to Mexico because we could, and we sailed that 1,000 miles in about, 6 days. Caught a huge Dorado, mahi, like 58-inch long dolphin. That's what we used to call them when I was growing up.
Yep.
And we just had a great time watching whales and seeing dolphins with phosphorescent at night. And we had a beautiful journey to Mexico. We got here. Mexico was wonderful. Let the guys get on a plane, go home to their families. Because again, we didn't know if airplanes, the airports would shut down or whatever. And since then, since March, Eric and I have been cruising Mexico, slowly but surely, exploring every port that we can. And just basically, we call it a reconnaissance mission because we're going to go to San Diego Yacht Club. We've got to slip in November. Hallelujah. So hard to get when we've been on a list forever, and there's only 6 slips out of 600 that can fit a cat. And so one opened up just last summer when we were home, and we were at the top of the list. So anyway, we've got a place to keep our boat for the first time. And so we're really excited about getting to San Diego. However, we're taking our time. We're still over here in what they call the Mexican Riviera, I guess. We're in Banderas Bay, which is close to Puerto Vallarta, but we're staying clear of big ports. And we're in Putamita, which is a great surf spot. So Eric's out right now surfing. Our boat is anchored right behind a really popular surf spot. They call it the Mexican Malibu. And we've been enjoying meeting friends that live here and doing as much social distancing as cruisers. I mean, we're basically socially distanced anyway as cruisers.
Yeah.
But we have a few friends that we've gotten together with and enjoyed our time with them. So we're really having a great trip, and we'll be home and by the time cyclone season hits.
There you go. All right. So with all these different boats and all these different places, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. And let's start with, what's your favorite boat?
Right now, El Gato, the one I live on, and the one I've 5 years, 30,000 miles. But I've loved so many different boats. And if you're talking about a type of boat, I mean, I love windsurfing for the feel that you get. There's nothing closer to the wind. You feel the wind through your body. It translates through your hands and your feet. And I think that's where I really honed my skills on being sort of a wind seeker. That's one of my superpowers. If Eric were here, that's what he'd say. Because in windsurfing, you have to see what the next puff is going to be, or you go down, right? And so early on, I learned how to anticipate. So I love windsurfing for teaching me that. I have to say, in terms of thrills, Eric and I raced F-18s and NACRA 17s. And I think Katie touched on this one. There's nothing like going 25 knots with the spinnaker up. And Eric is the crew I drive, so he's heavier, so it makes sense. He's on the back of the boat, and we've had so much fun racing F-18s. We're not doing it now, but when we met, we did it a lot, and we did okay.
All right. All right. Well, what's your favorite place to sail or race? Let me kick it back to the racing side a little bit, or
Caribbean.
you can kick it anywhere. Actually, there. Take your question, run with it.
Well, I grew up in Miami. Miami is an awesome place to race, but it's shallow, so you can't race big boats there in the bay. We could back in the day. My dad's boat, we'd have to time coming back into the yacht club because of the keel.
Mm.
So the SORC used to be a big deal back in the day, and I remember that being the best regatta on the planet. When I was young, also, there was a thing called the Hook In and Hold On down in the Virgin Islands. And that was amazing because you'd race from island to island on your windsurfer, and your mothership, your boat that you slept on, would follow. So, we'd have 180 sailors and about 40 boats following, making sure they would sweep. And that was really fun. But the closest thing to that now, as a real adult, is the Caribbean. I just love the circuit down there. From the used to be the Rolex St. Thomas, and now it's the Stir Thomas International Regatta. Eric and I won that twice on my friend Terry McKenna's catamarans. She had a NACRA 17. I mean, it would blow 25, and you're just flying around these islands, and it's warm and it's beautiful, and the parties are great. And Eric and I also raced on a gunboat called Thirst, a 55-footer in the Leroy St. Bart's and in the Antigua Sailing Week. And people have been doing the Antigua Race Week forever, and I'd never done it. So I really enjoyed being down in the Caribbean. And I grew up in Miami, so even though I've moved to California when I was 23, my heart has still always been where the water's warm, where the beaches are white, and where the palm trees are there. So and the air's warm. So I love, love, love racing in the Caribbean.
I agree with you completely. I spent, I don't know, 5 or 6 years down there doing the circuit, and I loved it. No better place.
Yeah, I mean, San Diego's awesome for racing, and San Francisco, used to go there every summer and windsurf, and I've done the Hobie Nationals up there, and a lot of things up in San Francisco, and I've done the Chicago Mac, and I've sailed around the country. Newport, Rhode Island is amazing, but you asked favorite,
Yeah,
there's nothing like the Caribbean.
I agree.
It's
All
about being
right.
more.
So have you seen anything strange ever floating around in any of your, travels or distant trips?
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some weird stuff. I think I mentioned earlier, one of the coolest things I've ever seen are the dolphins, and I'd never seen it before. At night, maybe I did mention it, the phosphorescent dolphins at
Oh
night,
yeah.
like torpedoes. And we have two hulls, so they're inside in between our hulls on the outside. And at 4 o'clock in the morning to have this group join you in the middle of the night is just so cool. So that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen at night. At night,
Yeah.
and during the day, I've seen weird things off the Bahamas when I was younger, but like things sticking out of the water and then disappearing. And uh, yeah, there's some goofy stuff out there. It's a whole other world under the water that we don't know what's going on.
Yeah. All right. So what
And
is
well, I was going to say, one other cool thing that we saw on our trip, we went to Cape Cod, and we found a place where all the whales go because there's a feeding frenzy. It's the Stellwagen Bank. And we took our boat there, we took the sails down, we took the engines off, and sat there, and the whales went literally right by our boat, feeding with their mouths open. And one humpback went underneath our boat and put its arms out. And we looked down, and then it was looking up, and it was the coolest thing ever.
wow?
So that
That
was a cool thing.
that would scare me to death.
It scared my husband, but I wanted to jump in.
All right. So what's your best regatta you've ever done, or any super moment that just some really fun time.
Well, when I was younger, I'd have to say the Olympic windsurfing exhibition in LA. That, to, you know, I hoped, I thought I was going to get the gold and I missed it by less than a point. So I was disappointed, but, and it took me years and years to get over the fact that I didn't win the gold and I got the silver. I'm okay with it now. It's standing on the podium and having your parents basically crying in the stands and taking pictures and having your flag up above. That's a proud moment. And a lot of work goes into Olympics. So that was a big deal. And even though it was an exhibition, it was the first time in the history of Olympics that women had their own class.
Yeah.
So they talk about the first class ever in the Olympics being the 470, and that was 4 years later. In fact, it was that exhibition, and we got medals. So I know I was in it, but it was that was a proud moment. And then just last November, I won the Hobie Worlds, the women's world, for the third time.
Yeah.
So at my age, winning that was a pretty cool moment because I felt like, wow, I still got this.
Yeah, you can still do it. All right. So, what is your worst trip or worst regatta or worst event?
Oh,
So, I mean, that's everything you've done. I know is impressive. So, you've got to have a bad time or two.
oh, that I have to. You should have given me that question ahead of time because I can't think of a bad regatta. I think one of the things about regattas and what drew me into it, as much as the competition makes you become a better sailor, I really do like trying to do the best job that I can at whatever it is, whether it's cooking or playing an art or whatever. It's the people. So I'm always having a good time at a regatta. Have I been disappointed? Yes. I mean, you don't reach the top by winning everything. Your disappointments you learn more from. So yeah, I mean, I've had heartbreakers where I've lost by a point. Not just that one. There was a women's nationals once where I lost by less than a point, and I remember just sobbing. I was crying in the bathroom at the Olympics when I heard the girls talking about scores and saying who got the gold. So getting second really kind of sucks, but it's a lot better than third,
Yeah.
fourth,
Yeah.
and yeah, there was one time I remember at the ISAF Worlds. This was in 2006, and I went with my friend Sue Korzeniewski, and they had Hobie Cats with spinnakers. We were definitely two of the oldest sailors there because it's all Olympic class regatta kids getting ready. I don't know if you know, but it's every 4 years. The Olympics are every 4 years, and they overlap by 2 years, so they're off by 2 years. Anyway, Sue and I trained, and we went there, and we had the medal race, and we were a solid second place going into that race. The French had easily kicked everybody's butt, and they had the gold medal. That was a given. But the Austrians wanted to start the race because of a television program, and everybody knew the wind wasn't going to come in for another half hour, just a half hour to wait. Wouldn't wait, didn't postpone, started the race. The Germans weren't there yet. They were late getting off the beach. We saw them with their spinnaker coming after we'd all started, and we were all heading for the beach. We won the start, and we were leading everybody in. The French were right with us, and again, like I said, they just had to finish the race, we thought. The Germans who were late went the other way because they couldn't follow everybody, right? They got a Zephyr. They got around the top mark. Everybody else took forever, and we couldn't there was a half-hour time limit to get to the first mark.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody made it except for the Germans.
Oh.
They won the race. Everybody else had to take a DSQ ×2. The Germans got the gold medal. The French got the silver. We got the bronze. And that was the worst.
Yeah.
That was the worst regatta for sure.
I
felt bad for the French. They deserved to win.
Yeah, they basically stole that from you guys. Wow,
Yeah.
that's rough.
I hate medal races. I'm just gonna say it right here.
Yeah.
I've never enjoyed throwing it all out there for one race.
Yep, I can believe it. All right. So, do you consider yourself conservative or aggressive when you're sailing? You know, how do you see yourself in that?
Depends on the situation. I think I'm more aggressive with myself, with what I want to do to achieve the goals. But I'm not a yeller. I when I have a team of sailors, male, female, whatever, I'm not the person in the back of the boat yelling and getting aggressive like that. If Because I did match racing and because I've raced a long time and I have, the videos in my head of things that have happened before, I would say I'm aggressive with a boat because I know I can put it in there. I know how to, I know time and distance and I can squeeze in if I feel like I can make it. Um, but I
Thread the
don't,
needle, so to speak. Yeah.
but I don't take unnecessary risks because I also know that getting disqualified or breaking the rules isn't worth it. So knowing the rules, that's kind of my pet peeve with a lot of sailors. It's not a pet peeve. It's just I'm so curious why they don't all read the rules and really go to like Dave Perry seminars, more people, because just even as a crew, if you understand the rules, you understand the game. And if you understand the game, then you understand what the tactician and the driver are trying to set up.
Yeah.
So if I could encourage anybody that's watching that hasn't read the rule book lately, just do a review.
You
So
know,
aggressive, yes, as long as I'm comfortable with the situation.
talking about rules, I took about a decade off of sailing, and I'm, just now getting back into it. And I did a quick skim of the rules, and I thought I used to know them by heart. Went to a regatta, got in a protest, a month ago, and every everything I thought, as far as being clear ahead, even jibing in the two bowling circle, everything I've
That's
known for
the
years is different. And I'm like,
yeah.
how, I'm just dumbfounded. I lost a protest, and eh, you know, pay attention. All right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. All right. So you've
So
touched on a
going,
couple things, and that is
yeah.
women's sailing, and I want to definitely get your input on that. Do you like them being the women being in their own group, or do you like them mixed? Do you like the, what's your take on it?
Well, I enjoy sailing with women. I've loved the camaraderie, and I think the big thing behind all that when I started when I was about 17, 18 in Miami, it was about being able to empower women, give them a chance to grab the line themselves and not have somebody take it out of their hands because they're too slow. Or women learn differently. We like to know what we're doing before we do it. So taking our time to understand how the winch works or whatever. And I ran offshore racing clinics for about 5 years, mostly on the West Coast. First one was in Connecticut. So women could learn how to race big boats. And again, without having the male energy around to take over the job or make the, it depends on the woman, obviously. Some women are not intimidated being with all male crews and learning that way. And some prefer that. That's great. But I don't think they've actually raced with a fun group of women. Um, but I like sailing with both. And in terms of women, I think it's important to have all women classes so that more women get opportunities. It comes down to opportunity. If they hadn't done women classes in the Olympics, and I helped argue for that 470 class, there were women that didn't want an all women class in the Olympics. They're like, we can beat the men. And I'm going, yeah, you can. But what about some of these other countries? They will never get the opportunity or the funding because they're female. But if you open it up and you say, oh, there's a women's class, then all of a sudden that yacht club or that federation or that country, I'll take Mexico as an example, they'll get behind it. Canada did too. I mean, they paid their sailors to train. They gave them money, but under the US, we don't do that. But in other countries where they really needed it, it worked. So that helped a lot in terms of getting more women out there. So these women's organizations that have cropped up over the decades around the country and around the world have really helped the grassroots of women get out there and play. And I love that the women have done round the world races, and we have our own match racing world circuit. It's been great, and I can't see why any man would be against that. I mean, there's
Yeah.
more women on the water. Going to a regatta and there's women. There's women on almost every boat now. Not when I started, man. You had to fight and claw your way to get on a boat, or take your own boat out, your dad's boat in my case.
Yeah.
So I love it.
All right. Well, it's good to hear your take. I mean, like I say, I've interviewed a couple people, and they say, quit separating us. Make us beat the boys, and then I hear the same, the other direction. Separate it. I just never know where it goes. I coached a bunch of girls uh, years ago, and I had like 10 to 15 girls I would coach 2 or 3 days a week, and basically all summer, and I wore them out and taught them like I would a guy. And
Yeah.
we had a couple of the guys come and join, and this is all in laser radials. And the guys, you know, right in the beginning, they were just a little bit better. And then by the end of the summer, the girls were beating up on the guys. And I used, the two guys that would show up as motivation. I'm like, come on, girls, don't let these guys out hike you. You've got to work harder. And at the end of the summer, these girls did. And, a lot of those girls today are still my crew, still out there kicking butt and doing great things around. And I think, just having some sort of motivation to realizing they can do it definitely seemed to help them. I don't know. That was always sort of my
Yeah,
take on
whatever
it.
it takes.
Right. Whatever it
Yeah.
takes, get them out there. Um, all right. So, what's one of the best maneuvers you've ever pulled off while racing? A great start, a great beat, just one epic, you know, turn of events during an event.
um, well, it was just a beer can race, really. Then I was driving my friend's Swan 50 something. I don't remember what it was. And we had about 25 people on board. And it was in San Diego Bay. And our beer cans, there's a lot of boats that go
Yeah.
out when it's not quarantine time. And somehow the wind had died and the current was such that everybody was around that top mark at the same time. And I was able to pull off getting around that mark without hitting anybody, and they were coming in on board and start. I mean, it was mayhem, chaos everywhere, and we had a powerhouse. You can't really stop those
Yeah.
boats. If they're moving, they're just gonna mow you down. And my friends afterwards were my neighbors. We'd invited them to come along, and they've never been on a beer can race, and they're not sailors, and they were just looking at me like, we did it. Oh my God, they were freaked out. And I was just doing what we do. But I do remember it was really tricky. And I kind of enjoy that stuff where the harder and the trickier it is to get a big boat around and to maneuver and to judge the time of a little boat and a big boat and know the difference and be able to still put yourself wherever that needs to be. I love that stuff. So those are my kind of aha moments.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I like to think I'm pretty decent at it as well, and eh, those are always good ones. All right, let's see what other questions I've got here. All right, what's your best project or the best, something you've been involved in that, there's something that really sticks out that you enjoy?
A sailing project.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been rebuilding a boat or a racing program or, cruising around the world. Who knows? Just something that
Well,
really
it takes
jumps
a lot
out.
of preparation to do what we're doing now, and I say there's some definite crossovers between racing and cruising. You have to be prepared if you don't want to die.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot for the way we cruise. I mean, there's a lot of cruisers we run into, and they'll find a port and they just stay there. And Eric and I, after about 3 days, we go, okay, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
So we've seen so many places, we've done all our passports, but the thing that okay, what was the question again? I kind of went off on a
Your favorite program, boat trip, something.
oh yeah.
favorite
I want to
program
go
kind of
back.
thing?
When I was 23 and my friend Sarah Kavanaugh and I were sailing across the Bahama Banks in midnight and talking, and the SRC was over and all the boats kind of take their time going home, and she was brainstorming with me and she said, why don't we share the knowledge with other women? And I thought, that sounds great. How do we do that? She goes, well, why don't we do some clinics? So that's how the US YRU, which was US Sailing at the time, women's offshore racing clinics were born. And we did the first one in Connecticut, and Bill Gladstone helped us run it. And we had Dave Perry as a speaker. The next one was in San Diego. And what we would do is have like 3 days of, we'd have a coach on board, and it was always a male because we didn't have any female mentors at the time. The Don Rileys were still in high school and college, maybe. Katie was probably in junior high, or no, she was probably in elementary school. But yeah, so we did these offshore racing clinics. And so for 3 days in San Diego, we had every rock star you can imagine. And when the word got out to the guys, they wanted to be coaches. Like, it was important to them, and they all did it for free. We had Tom Blackcaller, Peter Eisler, Dennis. I mean, I could name the names. Like, every place that we put them, the guys flocked. It was great. So we had women, we had so many women that wanted to do it. They would send in resumes, and then we put them in the position that they wanted if there was enough room and space. We fed them, we housed them, and I think we charged $300 for the whole program for the week. Mm-hmm. Place to stay, everything you can eat. And we also ended with an offshore race. And in San Diego, we did a race. We went down to Mexico and back, and then we started going, maybe these overnight races aren't such a good idea, because when we went down to Mexico, the mark was missing. And we were having Betty Eichenlob, and Sarah and I were on Betty's, Carl Eichenlob's dad's boat at the time, Cadenza, as the mothership, following the girls down there and watching them all on these Santana 3030s, 10 boats with spinnakers in the dark, flying down the coast of Mexico for some buoyed around that wasn't there. And we were turn around, because they were heading for the rock. It was just
There's
crazy.
a reef up there. That's not the right mark. Yeah.
Just way too much responsibility. No. And we had no insurance. I mean, we just were doing it. And there's still women that come up to me and go, that was boot camp, man. That was tough. But they're still racing big boats. And I really enjoyed that program a lot, putting a lot of energy into empowering women to go out there and race.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did. I'm sure it's helped the sport. I know it's helped the sport, so it's just incredible that you've done that. All right, so now I'm going to change the subject a little bit. America's Cup, what do you think? You love it? You hate it? Do you like the old days with the dial-ups, or what are your thoughts on today's America's Cup?
I think it's the America's Cup. There's nothing like it. So I just go with it. I always like the change of the boat. You know, everybody was making fun of this latest one. They look like bugs, and I think of safety, and I think of the arm going out and just killing somebody. So that scares me. At the same time, when I've heard one of the sailors talk about how it feels to sail on that boat, they said it's like an airplane just smoothly taking off, instead of really struggling to get the boat up to foils. I guess it was harder with the catamarans, and that's just technology. So I love the America's Cup. I loved being on a team. I loved commentating for it all these years. And we were on our way to New Zealand to watch the next Cup. We couldn't wait to see it. Now we may fly there if they still plan to have it at which they haven't canceled or delayed it yet. So I go with the flow on that, but I worry that the technology this time isn't necessarily going to trickle down, which in the past it did. I loved that it was on catamarans, because as a catamaran sailor from the time I was young, I knew how much fun they've always been. And there's so many people that poo-pooed them, didn't respect them. There's still people out there like that. They can't, oh, you're not really sailing if you're sailing a cat. Well, I beg to differ. I raced both, I've sailed both, and you're definitely sailing.
Yeah.
And I think the reason they're doing it on these boats is because they had so much fun on the catamarans and going fast and foiling. The sailors themselves, who were not cat sailors, most of them, became addicted, and they didn't want to lose that adrenaline and that speed and that thrill of going way too fast and way too scary. You know, they're just adrenaline junkies. So I think that's why I ended up being as it is. Prada, of course, wanted a monohull, so they made a deal. But I think Prada is regretting how that went. I've heard that anyway.
Yeah.
And but that's because the guys didn't want to go slow anymore. You know, it's so the America's Cup is so cool. I've always loved it. I have Lawson's book that talks about from the beginning, and it's pretty cool. The history is amazing. The oldest sporting trophy there is.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're really cool. The technology is amazing. I'm not sure what will trickle down. I'm hoping some of the sail designs and stuff will, which I know the America boat is, you know, they're quantum, and with me working for quantum, it makes it. I'm just waiting for that memo. But
well, one thing on that too is that one of the problems that I've seen with the way things have gone, though, is that you would have never seen Dennis Conner or yeah, there's a lot of people. Even when he was back and he was in really good shape, I mean, maybe he would have sailed one of these, but they've made it so limited. You have to be such a powerhouse athlete, extreme athlete.
Oh yeah.
That it's limited how many sailors can do it, and certainly it's limited women. I mean, we'd have to be a genetic freak. We'd have to be so strong, and one of the boys really. And I know there's women, we had them on our team that could do that, but I don't see any out there. So it definitely limits how many people can play in that game. But hey, it's the Super Bowl, so not everybody can play football at that level either.
True. All right. So, what kind of advice do you have for new sailors?
Have fun.
Have
Like
fun.
find the boat that makes sense to you, that's fun, that you feel safe on. It's not about going the fastest or you know, the thrill seeking. It's just have fun. So, you know, whether it's windsurfing or a Hobie wave, those are really fun.
Yeah.
Going out with a group of people that you really like and you trust, and nobody yells. And if somebody yells, get off the boat. I mean, it's all supposed to be fun. And one of the things you mentioned earlier, I do all these different types of boats. I love them all for different reasons, but I really like the camaraderie of sailing with a group of people and being in it together for the goal of trying to do your best in performance. And win or not, having a perfect tack or a perfect jibe, that's fun at my level.
Yeah.
So for somebody getting new, I'm sorry, there's a gardener right now. Can you hear me okay, or should I move?
Yeah, you're good for now. That's all right.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let me go ahead and I'm going to cut you short since you do have a gardener there.
I gotta move. I can't hear you. Wait 1 second.
Uh-oh.
Okay, that's better.
Okay.
Whew.
All right. I was going to say I was going to go ahead and cut you short since you have a gardener there, and
No, it's
we're
not.
getting our interview's reaching about the right number. One more thing. One more question, which is, do you have anything to add? What do you have any advice on people getting into the sport? You know, ways we can grow it. You know, just come up with a quick synopsis on things that you can add that might help other sailors or non-sailors.
Well, just I go back to the fun factor. Find something that's fun. Start with something small too. If you want to learn on your own, I mean, it's easy to jump on, not easy, but if you can get on someone else's boat, you end up just doing one little thing. But if you can get out on, as you did with lasers,
Yeah.
or something, a one-person boat or a two-person boat, you can learn a lot more about the wind, because it all comes down to where's the wind coming from. And once you can feel that wind on your face, you know where the wind's coming from, and you know you can't go that direction.
Yeah. Yep.
Just have fun.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, everybody, you have heard it here. This is Annie Gardner. Uh, I've known her for a while, but even some of the stories she just mentioned, I was unaware of. So I'd like to thank her very much. Everybody, look her up. She's on Facebook, and some of her pictures and some of the things she's doing just looks like she's having a blast. So definitely join her and look her up. And thank you, Annie, for everything. And with that, this is Zane from Sailing Views, and we're signing off. So over and out, and bye-bye.
Bye, Zane. Thanks.
Bye.